This episode is about Dominica. Dominica is a very beautiful island in the middle of the Caribbean, and it's very well known for being one of those places where they filmed Pirates of the Caribbean. But for me, it's a very special place, because a few years back I had the chance to jump in the water and film the resident sperm whales. So I want to tell you the story, how this all happened, how that story unfolded whilst I was there. But not just that, I also want to show you how beautiful the dive sites are, very close to Roseau, which is the capital in the south of the island. I hope you're going to enjoy the episode. Let's roll the intro. Most of the dive sites can be reached with a short boat ride from Roseau, where most of the dive centers are located. It's time to gear up and to see what Dominica's underwater world looks like. Due to the steep drop-offs around Dominica, you don't have the usual sediment limiting the visibility that you can often find present on shallow sandy reefs on other islands or coastlines. This means generally very good visibility, and it's the first thing you notice when you start your dive. Even though most of the dives are along steep walls, typically the most beautiful parts of the reefs can be found in relatively shallow waters. Most of the time at around 10 to 15 meters, that's about 30 to 45 feet. Diving in shallow waters also has the benefit that the whole color spectrum is visible to the eye. As every scuba diver knows, the deeper you go, the more colors are filtered out by the water. As you can see, the colors of the corals are breathtaking and the reefs are teeming with life. The corals on the reefs are generally in a very good shape. One of the problems that typically leads to coral bleaching, a process where the corals shed their polyps, lose their color and die, is because of water temperatures that get too high over a prolonged period. An effect that we sadly see on the majority of our tropical reefs worldwide. The reason for this is climate change and the rise in seawater temperatures. Dominica is largely unaffected, as there are no shallow parts that can heat up the water over the threshold that corals can sustain. As there are upwelling currents that carry more nutrients-rich waters from the deep, there are lots of large Gorgonian fan corals found on the drop-offs. This is normally a good sign for the water quality on tropical reefs. Roseau is definitely worth a visit. It has beautiful flair and some very interesting buildings from colonial times. Another highlight is Roseau's local market. This place is very vibrant and there's a wonderful Caribbean herb and spice flavor in the air. There's also a nearby old fort built by the British that is worth to have a look at. It has been restored in large parts and is a window back through time. Apart from the volcanic hot springs in the mountain ranges and the other highlights that I have just shown you, Dominica is also being called the Island of 1,000 Rivers. I haven't counted them all, but there are certainly quite a lot of them that you can explore. I found the nicest way to explore them was to go into the rivers with a canoe and a local guide. The scenery that passes by is stunning, and there are a few locations along the way where you can disembark and enjoy a refreshing beverage of your choice in a very unique jungle bar. I can also highly recommend to pay a visit to the Carib village. There you can see how local craftsmanship is used to produce beautiful indigenous art. As a bonus, the village also offers a fantastic vantage point over Dominica and has some of the best views on the island. So one of the days, the tourist board actually planned for me to go out with a boat and to film the resident sperm whales. Something really special, and I was really looking forward to that trip. Unfortunately, the boat was a little bit crowded. I couldn't really move as much as I wanted to, and all I ended up was a few shots of the whales just from the surface. And to me, that just didn't do it. So I went back to my liaison officer from the tourist board. Her name was Alex. And I talked to Alex and said, you got something very, very special and unique here. You got resident sperm whales, and you can find them almost anytime. That's something so unique that we should actually try to film that as best as we can. And I told her it's probably best if we were to also film them in the water, not just from the boat, to tell the whole story. So she looked at me a little bit bewildered and said, is that even possible? Because back then, no one else had been in the water with the sperm whales. So I thought, of course it's possible, but we've got two hurdles to clear. Number one, we need a boat. So you need to find me someone that can get me out there with an experienced crew to find the sperm whales and to get me safely in the water and pick me up again. Hurdle number one. And hurdle number two was, I wasn't quite sure if it's just okay for me to jump in the water with those sperm whales. And you have to adhere to local laws, and I wasn't quite sure. So I told Alex to go and see the fisheries department and talk to them and see if they have any objections or if they're okay with me going in the water with those sperm whales. So didn't think much of it because I thought we are going to struggle with hurdle number one. So I almost forgot about my request with Alex and the sperm whales. But just a few days before I was due to depart, she called me up and said, hey, Andy, good news. I cleared it with the fisheries department. They're fine. You can jump in the water and film the sperm whales. And I found you a boat. It's the same boat you went out the first time for the whale watching tour, and the owner just made one request. He said he wants to be part of this trip and he wants to bring his family along. So the day came and we went out with the boat. It didn't take very long, and we found a big pot of sperm whales, and they were socializing. That's the part of the day when they actually all get together. They rub their skin together so that that skin comes off, and that's about the slowest moving time of the day for the whales, and that's the best time to actually get in the water and film them. So that's exactly what happened. I jumped in the water, I swam towards them, and they slowly started to pass me. So I thought, now it's time to get their attention. And from previous experiences with humpback whales and minke whales in Australia, whenever you make a loud sound underwater or any kind of sound that they're not familiar with, they typically come in and investigate. Now, I know that humpbacks are quite attracted with high-pitched sounds. You can sing any song, and they're typically interested and come in to investigate. But not so the sperm whales, and they completely ignored me as if I even wasn't there. So what I remembered then was that on the first time I went out with the whale watching tour, the guide told me that they make a clicking sound. So then I started to try and imitate clicking sounds, but I thought they weren't loud enough. So I just started to bang against my tank, and that actually caught the attention of the sperm whales. So then the magic happened. The big bulls, they sort of stopped, and they first looked at me, and because they have the eyes quite low in their skull to see everything in 3 dimensions, they typically have to go on top of whatever they want to have a look at. But since I was very close to the surface, and those are massive whales, right? They're about 45, 50 foot in length. So they had to actually invert in the water and go underneath and come back up, so they could really fully see me. And that's what they did. On top of that, they start to fire their sonar, and for you to imagine what that's like, imagine you're in a club and you're in front of a subwoofer. And you can feel that subwoofer, you can feel the sound waves. Now, with the sperm whales, their frequencies are so deep and it's so powerful that your whole body starts to vibrate. It's quite a unique experience, but at least I got their attention, and they checked me out for a few minutes, and before you know it, they sort of pushed out a little bit further, and then the mothers came in, and the mothers didn't fire any sonar at me. They just looked me deep in the eyes for a little while, and then they started to bring in their little calves. So you had the big bulls protecting the outer perimeter, then you had the mothers, and on the inside you had the small calves that were very curious to see what I am. It was quite a humbling experience to be in the midst of such big animals. I mean, they're one of the largest animals that ever roamed our planet. And it's just something unique when you look a big whale in the eyes and they look back, and there's a moment of connection, and you know they're sentient and they know you're a sentient being. It's something that's hard to put in words, and you should best try and have that adventure for yourself. And the good news is, now you can just book your normal trip and you can jump in the water and free dive with those big whales. So if that wasn't convincing enough, then I don't know what is. But to me, again, Dominica is such a beautiful island that has so many features. It's definitely worth checking out, and perhaps this is going to be your next holiday diving destination.